Good morning, everyone. I'd like to share to you how we can create activity or lesson in our CLE in few steps. Of course, we have to open our browser and log in to our CLE account. In my case, I have bookmarked already my CLE here. So I'll just click it and my password is already saved here. In case you have not saved your password on your browser, just of course log in your username and password and get inside your CLE account. The only option we can try in this case is creating activities here under my subject, and only one option here below inside your course, and then you will be prompted with an um, empty sections, empty container of activities. If you have noticed, we have section 1, 2, 3, 4 here. You can add more sections if you are teaching more sections or more levels. In my case, I will be teaching only 4 sections because I'll be teaching the same lesson for all grade 7. I'll be teaching the same lesson for all grade 8. So I'll just rename the sections according to the grade level. Um, Although I'll be starting with grade 8 for my first quarter, but I'd like to name my sections in order. So I'll change the section name here to grade 7. When you rename it, press enter and don't click anywhere else or your changes will not be saved. Look at this, if I'm going to click here, it will still be section 1. So I need to edit the name and press enter to accept the changes. I need to change this one also to grade 8. Press enter. Change this. Change to grade 9. Press enter. And change this to grade 10. And press enter. Okay. In my case, I'll start with grade 8. Okay, what am I going to teach in grade 8? How many lessons do I have in grade 8? So I'll try to open my reference. I save my reference in my Google Drive. That's in here, my most essential learning competencies, my MELC for grade 7 to 10. So I'll go down to grade 8 and look at this, grade 8. In the first quarter, I'll be teaching here the physics part. So week 1 will cover the first lesson. The first lesson covers the relationship between the amount of force applied, the mass, and the amount of change. So this is actually talking about the mass and acceleration and force. Okay, so I can name my lesson force, mass, and acceleration, or I can just name mass and acceleration. It doesn't matter. So as long as it focuses on the first two law of motion. So I will just create an activity here, and that activity is my content delivery, which is lesson. I'm going to add it up and name it maybe mass and acceleration, or I could include force there. Okay, but force will be the star for the laws of motion. So I will just exclude in my title and maybe make it appear later. So my first lesson is about mass and acceleration. Now, um, I can put here some conditions for activity completion. So if I'm going to save it, you will notice here below. So let me open another browser so that I can uh, view it as a student. So I'm going to open it on another browser as a student. Why I'm doing this? So that it will not take longer time to shift between the normal role, which is the teacher, and the student role. So I'll just get inside um, our vismin.aralinks.net, and then I'm going to use my account. Of course, my password. All right, so I'm here. I'll go to I'll go back to the same container here. So I have here grade 8 and I would like to view this as a student. So I'll change my role, switch my role to student. Okay, now I can see here as a student, if you look at this, there's a box here where the student can just put a check mark so that he can already claim that he has done this activity. Okay, but we will not, in my case, I don't want my student to mark it completed without completing any conditions. So I'm going back here as a teacher. I will set my roles. I'm going to edit it and edit the settings. Okay, so I'm going to create here activity completion. I don't want my students to be able to mark it completed without conditions. So I'll show the activity as complete when conditions are met. First, student must go through all my pages. Okay, the student must be able to read or go through or just even open the content that is being delivered to them. Okay, sometimes we can also create a grading system for every lesson to really make sure that they have learned the content. Okay, we can set here some grade conditions for our formative assessment. Okay, for now, let's skip that. We'll tackle that later in some other video, some other feature that we will be discussing. But I would like my student to reach at the end of the lesson to complete the activity. Okay, I can even put here um, the time the student should spend with the lesson to be able to complete that. But I'm going to skip that for now. I will also skip the deadline for completing the said lesson. Of course, you can set the deadline here. Okay, but that would be for now, and then I'm going to save and return to the course. Okay, I'm going back to my student view. I'm going to refresh this one. Look at this. The check mark, the box here is no longer available. This will be labeled only if all the lessons are met by the student. Okay, I'm going back to the teacher mode. Go back here, and now we can start adding lesson to our adding content to our lesson. You can use here import content page, or if you would like, you can use the quick editor here. Okay, they work the same, but the look of the quick editor is friendlier, so you may want to choose quick editor. Okay, and see, our lesson is still empty. There's nothing yet inside our lesson. So what we can do is add a new page, which is the content. Okay, we want to add a content. Okay, of course the content will focus. Let us say, for example, my first lesson will focus on mass. Okay, and then um, I can discuss anything about mass here. So let me just put some text here to make it look real. Okay, so let us say I have entered there 2 paragraphs. No? Okay, of course you can insert some images, but let's do that later. Let's focus first on the basic entry of content. Okay, and then you will be required to enter at least to include at least one shortcut to another page or another link. So let me just use the word next, okay, which will bring us to the next page. So I'm intending to create another page after the first content page, okay, and then I'm going to save that. Okay, so if you're going back to our student view here, let's refresh it and get inside. Now my student now has a content to read. Okay, while the next button will bring him to the next lesson or the next content page that we will create. So if we are going to click this will end the lesson because there's no more page that we created after the mass. So let's now go back here. Let's go back to our teacher mode here. We are already done saving this page. Let's add up another one, another lesson. You can just go back, you can just click here, add new page, okay, and then another content page, another content page. The next page, let us say for example, units for mass. I would like to units of mass, so or units for mass. Okay, so I'm going to add another text here, another content delivery. So that would be all about mass. Remember that this is already your second page. So if that is your second page, you have a previous page. You can just use previous, or you can use the name mass for your previous lesson, and then go to the previous page for this shortcut, and then you are going to create another one, maybe the title of the new content page, or just the next, and then proceed to the next page. Okay, and then you save it. Okay, if you notice, you now have two contents in your lesson. Okay, let's go back to the student view, refresh it, and then let's try to see what happens inside. Okay, I'm going to click next. Now I am directed now to units and mass. Okay, and then you can create more and more and more content so the students can read them. Okay, you can also of course include some links of video that you want them to watch. Okay, but let's put the advanced inclusion of other features later. Just first the text that we can add to our lesson. Okay, so definitely going back here to the student view, if I'm going to click next, since this is my last content in my lesson, this will end my lesson, but I'm not going to let the lesson end yet, because I'm going to create another lesson um, for my unit. So I'm going to close this editor because I'm already done saving it. Okay, I'm already done saving it. I'm going to close this editor. Okay, I will go back here and see you have one lesson. Now I'm going to create another activity for another lesson. Okay, for another lesson. So I'm going to click for another lesson. What will be my title? Of course, I'll base it to my next lesson, which is actually the third law of motion, the law of interaction. Okay, where the students will infer that a body exerts a force on another, an equal amount of force exerted back on it. This is actually one of my favorite lessons. This talks about karma. When you do something bad to other people, bad something happens back to you or to the people you care about. So anyway, let's go back here to the lesson. This is all about interaction. Okay, you can even name it the karma in physics, okay, or revenge in physics, or just interaction, okay. And then in this lesson, I want this lesson to be available only when my previous lesson was completed. Okay. Of course, you can also add another set of completion conditions here. You can, of course, use the same condition. But there's a restriction that I'm going to set for this lesson. I'm going to restrict my student from accessing this lesson unless my previous lesson was completed. So I'll add a restriction here, and I want an activity completion for my requirement. So the student has to finish first my first lesson before going into this lesson. So I'll add activity completion, okay? Which activity should be completed before this lesson will be available to them. I want them to finish the first lesson here, okay? So it must be marked completed, okay? It must be marked completed, okay? Or you can also include the formative assessment later. You can also choose that the previous lesson must be completed with a passing grade, okay? So I'll just use mark complete because I did not include yet any formative assessment in my previous lesson. I'll just use the first option, and then I'm going to save it. Okay. Of course, I'm going to add now more activities here, so I can just get inside here. Okay. I can also use the quick editor for easy access, but remember the quick editor and the options here are the same. So I can also add content page using this option. In the same lesson, I'll be teaching about the third law of motion. And enter content here. Okay, whatever discussion. You can even, of course, use some editing features here, the bold. You can, of course, make it a heading one. So the same like when you're working with a word processor, you can but if you noticed earlier in the quick editor, there are more options for formatting. Okay. For this case, I'll just create this one, and then content page, of course, we use this one next. But remember, you can, of course, name it with the title of the next lesson of your next content of your lesson for the next page. So in my case, I'll just use next because I'm not intending to create another page. So and then since there's only one required field here, I don't need to create second content. So I'll just save it here. Now I'm going back here to my interaction. This is how it will look like, no? when you are viewing it on a student view. So I have now the second lesson, which is restricted for will be available only to the students if the mass and acceleration lesson is already completed. Okay, now I have saved them. Let's go back to the view of the students. Going back to the view of the student, let us go back to grade 8. In grade 8, here, if you see, the student cannot access the second lesson because he's not yet done with the mass and acceleration. But if I'm going to finish it, okay, in this case, I was my browser, my course manager was able to remember that I'm done viewing this page already. I can proceed to another to the last page where I stopped, or I can just start from the very beginning. So I'll just say no to start from the beginning of the lesson, and then go to the next lesson, which is the unit of mass. And then remember that there's no more content page following this lesson, this content. So that means this button will end my first lesson of mass and acceleration. So I'm going to end it there. So it's already done because I already finished, no? Let us check if my next lesson was already available. Okay, it seems I missed something with my links in my mass and acceleration. I have to go back here and edit. Okay, so I'm going to edit it. It seems that I miss my condition for this. Okay, see, I missed this part here. Instead of going to the next lesson, I chose previous page. So that's why my lesson did not end. So I'm going to click here, end lesson or next page. Okay, I can end the lesson or next page. And then I'll just update. Okay, let's go back to the student view. Refresh this one. Okay, now when a student gets inside and then go through your lesson and then finishes the lesson, see, well done, because we already reached the end of the lesson. So that means my lesson, mass and acceleration, has been completed already by the student. Now when I go back here, the next lesson now is available for viewing. I can now get inside and learn new things. Okay, I think that would be enough for now. We will just try another feature some other time. For now, you can input more and more and more content to your LMS so that you will be more prepared for your lesson or your content delivery. Thank you for watching and hope this video helps you.